Ladies and gentlemen, the next Warriors Corner will begin. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Ed Barker from PEO-Soldier.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. As the gentleman said, I'm Ed Barker from PEO-Soldier. I'm actually a project manager for Soldier Warrior. When you're thinking of PEO-Soldier, it's a pretty diverse portfolio of all the things that we do. Pretty much anything that a soldier wears, carries, looks through, shoots with, jumps with, binos, sensors, navigating from a situational awareness standpoint. We touch it all. So that's why from a portfolio standpoint, we're broken up into 4 distinct portfolios between soldier weapons, sensors and lasers, and then we also have soldier protective and individual equipment, and then we have my piece, which is Soldier Warrior, which is where we focus on a lot of the dismounted situational awareness and mission command. We have all the soldier power for the squad in our portfolio as well. And then what people don't know is that we actually have a lieutenant colonel down in Huntsville, and he gets the pleasure of sort of living and breathing within 2 PEOs, between PEO Aviation and PEO Soldier, and he serves as really the interface, that sort of pilot the vehicle interface for the soldier. And so that's why he's embedded with us to make sure that we're taking care of those Army air crews. And again, PEO Soldier located here in Northern Virginia, Fort Belvoir. We go to the next slide. So this is the problem set when you're talking about gear and what we're trying to do for soldiers. Okay, if you look at it from 2001 on the right hand, your left hand side, you look at the weight where we were, and then you look at it from a 2016 standpoint. It's about 9 pounds different, but it's an exponential increase in capability. A lot of the things are smaller and lighter. But in the end, I mean, we have just been putting more and more on a soldier from a capability standpoint. And quite honestly, we haven't done the best job from an integration standpoint and making sure we're managing those space claims, the weight claim bogies, to really get at the physical and the cognitive burden that we're putting on soldiers. In the end, the capabilities that we're providing, that's more than a decade plus of war. A lot of the weight actually came from the almost 12 pounds of water. So I think we've been doing something right with regard to making things lighter from a material aspect, but we still got to get at the integration problem. One of my counterparts down at the Maneuver Center of Excellence, the TICM for Soldier, Colonel Travis Thompson, he always jokes, well, he doesn't joke, he says that from a platform standpoint, you actually worry about the weight that you're putting on a tank or a Bradley, because you can actually stress the transmission and stress the axles, tracks, all that. So why aren't we doing that with a soldier? Why doesn't that soldier deserve the same amount of diligence when we're managing soldier load and trying to understand how we get at that problem? There's actually an article from I think 1912 that the New York Times did, talking about the approach load that we were placing on soldiers. So more than a century we've been dealing with this problem. So what you see on the right-hand side there, though, that is the 2016 soldier baseline. So what we did, and nobody had ever done this before, and I'll show you a picture later, but we literally documented everything that squad leader, team leader, grenadier, rifleman, everything that they wear, and accounted for it from a weight and space claim. And then what we do is each year we validate that baseline. We bring a bunch of senior NCOs in, and soldiers, and it's just like this big monster garage type thing where everybody's rigging stuff up and figuring out the best way to wear the kit for things that are new. And in the end, what we want to do is, once we have that baseline established, we provide that to the commanders in the field. It's not supposed to be dictative. It's really more prescriptive. This is what we have learned from a load standpoint. These are the optimal configurations, and what that does is it allows them to manage risk. It allows them to manage risk on approach loads, and knowing what they can drop from a protection standpoint, from a posture standpoint, knowing that, realizing that they can't carry everything, full out, because by the time they get to the objective, their guys are going to be smoked. So we're very conscious of that. We're about 2 years into it from a data standpoint, and we're really trying to, get our arms around the data and the information that we're gathering, because quite honestly, when you're talking about the different variations of kit, and oh, by the way, a soldier, last I checked, they're not all the same, and you have about 450,000 one-offs. So trying to understand performance, effectiveness, and all that, that's what we're trying to get at. Okay, that's what we're trying to make them more lethal, survivable, and from a mobility standpoint. Next slide, please. So how are some of the ways we're trying to do that? On the left-hand side is what we're calling inter-soldier wireless, which is ISW. So think of that as really a sort of a 2 to 3 meter bubble around a soldier that links all of his kit, just like you have your smartphones today, and you're linking to a Bluetooth speaker, or you're linking to your personal status monitor. That's what we're trying to get at in linking those devices, so that as a soldier, as he can actually point his rifle around the corner of a building and not have to look around, but the display is popping up in a form of a virtual reality in his goggles, so he doesn't have to put himself in harm's way, and he can actually engage the target. So things like that. But in the end, all of that kit has to be able to talk to each other. So we're really pushing the envelope right now. We have been really from the past year and a half pushing the security envelope specifically, because we can't just do those things unclassed. You have to protect that data. But what we've learned, and our argument has been, is that if you go in the form of a AES 256 level of encryption, if it's good enough for your banking, then maybe it's good enough to move data in that 2 to 3 meter bubble, inside of it, in that soldier's sort of his sphere of influence. And then inside of that, we have this end user device, which is basically a commercial smartphone. And that device is linked to some type of 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, tactical radio to serve as a transport layer to get the data that may be relevant, while it may be specific to the soldier or the team leader, it may be relevant to the platoon leader or the platoon sergeant. So we're trying to figure out the way to be able to transport that data. Say, for example, that soldier has a soldier-borne sensor, like a small quadcopter or whatnot. Right now, the current technology, the limitations from a classification standpoint, that guy is basically looking at the video, but he can't really share it from the device that he's using to download it. So he's literally calling back over FM voice and describing what he's seeing. So we want to get at the fact that you can actually share that video, high data rates from a throughput standpoint, and in the end, leverage everything that we're doing in our daily lives, protecting it at the same level that we should from from an encryption standpoint, but then just making sure that everything that soldier can leverage in his daily lives, we're bringing it to the tactical battlefield, and we're doing that on the left-hand side, or the right-hand side, in the form of Net Warrior. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Net Warrior, not so much as in the program of record, but some of the things that we've been doing for the past 6 months to a year. The reality is we were worried about the lower tactical internet, the company network, and why things were so complicated and why was it so difficult to employ. So we literally spent about a year and a half in the form of a roadshow and going out and talking to these guys. Little things like the fact that not enough actual home station charging, the fact that they had to store these things in secure comms rooms, and they had 15-character passwords that expired in 90 days. I mean, we made it, we were protecting the device to the point where it wasn't really feasible for them to train on a routine basis without it becoming just an enormous burden. And that was the feedback we were getting. It was just too difficult to do something as simple as sergeant's time training, let alone pull things out from a collective training standpoint. Over 90% of our FSR requests are for password resets and that 15-character password. So what we identified was the root cause. I mean, the root cause of the network from a company level standpoint was that the security aspect of it, we were from a classification standpoint, it was U.S. secret. Part of that was based on the fact that it touched a higher tier from a classification standpoint at the battalion level. And then the other portion that we saw that was a limiting factor was the fact that we had mandated transport in the form of specific waveforms, and we didn't really have options. So when you're looking at the device itself, what we wanted to try to do, the feedback that we received from the field was there was no real, what they call a PACE plan, a primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency comms route. So we basically spent the better part of a year, looking at that problem set. Some of the stuff that we were doing, it was interesting because I think we got the configuration and the software down because the 1st Special Forces Command came to us to actually field to the entire SF, 1st Special Forces Command, which is normally backwards. The Army's gone to SF. So I knew we were doing something right then. We just needed to get at the actual classification and get some alternate means of transport from a data standpoint. So I don't know. I don't know if many of you heard, but there's a lot of discussions in the in the news from a network standpoint. So what we have done, and it's actually being demoed down at JRTC right now, is a battalion within the 82nd, the 1st of the 508th, and we are demoing that secure but unclassed network that's leveraging commercial waveforms, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, basically providing them multiple layers from a PACE plan standpoint to include a tactical radio, but then and seeing how effective they are. And the feedback that we are getting right now is that it is a game changer, and the fact that they, in the company level exercise leading up to it, the company commander thought he was cheating because they had so much situational awareness. And some of the initial insights during the early entry ops was that particular battalion had more, was able to collect themselves on the DZ and obtain situational awareness faster than anybody had seen. So that's the type of feedback that we're getting. We know that it's not perfect. We know we have to still get at the problem set from a security standpoint. The good thing is we've been bringing all those partners in, like the CIO G6 and the NSA, to help them, to lead the charge and changing the security architecture so that we can operate that system. And what it's done is it's really opened people's eyes, and it's challenged the status quo, because people were telling you no because instead of yes but. And the more we push on the yes but and not taking no as the, in our mind, no was the beginning of the conversation. So, but it's just been amazing because we have all these folks sort of lining up, and now this is, it's becoming very evident that it's the right thing to do. And it's amazing when I can show you, bring up a device, and you can see our some of our special operators alongside some of our coalition partners here. But it's secure, but you have that level of visibility and that level of situational awareness, something that we don't have now. So that's what we're pushing from a kit standpoint, to get that into their hands and to start to proliferate that. We still have some work to do, specifically on the cross-domain side, to be able to pass information to that higher level of security architecture. We're proving some early success in that, which is, that was one of the things my boss told me when I first got in the job, was if you can solve the company network and get a cross-domain solution in place. So I joked with him. I told him I think I may have done it a year early, so I hope he doesn't fire me. So that's all right. If we go to the next slide, please. So these are just some of the screenshots, from the 1st of the 508th down at JRTC. It's just amazing that the amount of dialogue that occurs, text messages. It's actually a reduced reliance on voice comms. If you go to the next slide, please. So if you think of just another range fan, from a reconnaissance standpoint, identifying areas, but think of a scenario if you were a squad leader and you were trying to instruct your team leader to go clear a specific building. With this kit, you can just drop a small chem light, which is what we call them, a yellow chem light, on that building. It immediately proliferates the rest of the squad network and that team leader's device, and he sees what you want him to go clear. He goes and clears it, changes it to green, and there was never a voice command given. And so there was no uncertainty as to which building, not looking through binos and saying, no, the door to the right, that type of thing. You're making them more effective and more efficient is the key. So, next slide. So one of the things that we still have to get at, along with that proliferation of technology, is the power aspect of things. And we have been held to a standard, and from a 72-hour mission profile. And if you think about the power requirements on a squad or a platoon over 72 hours, and when you are using kit, like the smartphones, like the tactical radios, that can be an enormous draw from a power standpoint. So we've had to figure out ways to not only leverage the technology that's out there in the form of some of the lithium-ion batteries, like this is a conformal battery that slides into the side of your protective garments, and just that can run that phone and the device for at least 18 to 20 hours, and you're not using the actual inherent batteries within the devices themselves. So the other thing you see there is a Squad Power Manager. Just a small little device that allows, and there's actually a bigger kit that goes to this with a bunch of cables, everything from USB to alligator clips. Just being able to, to plug up to a car battery. I mean, there's always an Opal on the battlefield, right? So you can plug into those little things, and it gives them options, okay? Using solar blankets as well. So and you can see everything in just that little device and how you're actually charging your kit. So. That has been one of the bigger hits that we've given. They just love the amount of awareness that they have on the small screen and being able to check things out. The centerpiece there is the Tactical Communication Protective System. The top portion there is a radio version, and what that is it's active hearing protection for our soldiers. The smaller portion here is a non-radio version. But what we're doing, we're using commercial technology, state-of-the-art commercial technology, bone conducting, so you're removing the need for a microphone here. But it's kit that what we're seeing from an acceptance standpoint, and trust me, I am a tinnitus sufferer from years on the flight line, just pulling my earplugs out to hear, right? And the same thing that everybody does on the range too, you pull that out so you can hear. So what this does is, it's actually active hearing protection, so you can leave those in. It provides you situational awareness to the point where, and actually a directional form of hearing, where if there's leaves being crumpled behind you, you know the direction in which you heard the sound. So it's not just isolated into just the noise, so it does increase your situational awareness. So that's a good thing that we're starting. We actually just got permission to start fielding the lighter version to the non-radio users, so that's the goal, is to start to proliferate that throughout the force. On the right-hand side is what we call the Soldier Enhancement Program. This, most people don't know about SEP, is the name, or the acronym. SEP is really the soldiers and industry and a unit's voice to nominate gear that they want, that they may think may help them from a dismounted aspect, either lethality, mobility, or some form of comms. And what it is, we have a website set up. Soldiers can go on and they can just nominate kit. Sometimes they just have great ideas on how to do things with kit. And then every 6 months, my counterpart down, Travis Thompson, down at the Maneuver Center of Excellence, we go over this in the form of a council of colonels, and we usually get around 300 submissions or so. And then we'll neck that down. They have to be COTS, GOTS, or NDI, so there's no development. And it's basically just looking at the kit that's available that the soldiers are seeing, and can that bridge a gap from a capability standpoint? Can it inform an existing POR? Is it an exponential increase from a capability on an existing POR? Or maybe it's not quite what the vendor said it was going to be. So we sort of neck those down, and in the end, on average, we do about maybe 16 to 20 of them. We'll actually do a formal evaluation on the kit. And usually the goal is between 12 to 14 months to have that evaluation done. And so part of that is actually getting it into the soldiers' hands and getting that feedback, getting it to a unit, getting it to a range. So it's not just us firing on the range. I mean, it's actually taking it out from an operational scenario and getting that type of feedback. If we can get it in the hands of a deploying force without impacting their ability to execute their mission, then we'll do that as well. So, but in the end, it's a great opportunity, and I mean, we have some brochures I'll set up for you guys, but about 40% of our portfolio within Soldier started there. So that's a good news story. We saw some trends where, and our industry partners do a great job of submitting stuff and getting it out there, but we wanted more of a balance between the soldier submission as well. So we went on a massive marketing campaign to include posters up in AFES, all over AKO, and we're seeing a better balance now between industry units as well as those soldiers. And they have some great ideas. So the more we can leverage what they're thinking, the better off we are. And if we can incorporate it and give them something that's better than what they have or increases that mobility lethality, then let's do it. So next slide. So just some other examples of some of the kit that we're getting in their hands. I talked a little bit about our guys down in Huntsville, Lieutenant Colonel Jay Mayer and the Air Warrior team down there, sort of serving as that pilot-to-vehicle interface. If any of you have been in an aircraft, you remember that, like, you know, as one of the crew members got out, they had that like 50-foot-long cable and slinging that thing around. So we made it wireless, you know, with voice, you know, voice activated, hands-free. Really just bringing them into this day and age from a, you know, from a technology standpoint, and it reduced the burden significantly on those air crews, and it actually, you know, increased their efficiencies. And you know, one of the keys is it wasn't as difficult as we thought it was going to be. I mean, anytime you're touching platforms from an airworthiness and stuff, it can be pretty challenging. But in the end, we had a lot of support for doing that, and it made a lot of sense to do. So on the right-hand side, we have this helmet here, which is the integrated iHips. I think it's actually out at a test right now. It's in one of our other portfolios. The bottom line is we're looking at ways to make things more scalable, modular, variable levels of protection so that the commander can make a call on the level of risk that he's willing to take based on the operational mission profile. So you don't have to have full-blown levels of protection if you're in the assembly area. So you can scale those things, but you know, it's significantly lighter, and in the end, it does provide those options. And it actually gets at, you know, one of the, you know, the goal. I mean, for my portfolio, I have, you know, I own the data and everything that's on those smartphones and the end user devices. In the end, we want to get to the point where maybe we don't even have this, right? Maybe that's just a small little sensor that's displayed all that information up into your into a small heads-up display, and just everything sort of populated up there, like we mentioned earlier with the weapons. So there's a lot of great work going on in that area. So I mentioned the soldier baseline, so I'm going to wrap up real quick. If we go to the next slide. So that's what that rifleman looks like, okay? That's everything that's on that soldier from a baseline standpoint. That doesn't include stuff like if he's humping a mortar, if he's an RTO. The beauty of it is we know down to the NSN and, you know, the fractions of an ounce, the weight and the dimensions. So we know better than we've ever had with regard to the space claims, the weight claims. But you see the problem set. Okay, it's not easy making sure that, you know, that we're managing that integration effort, that we're having those discussions, that when somebody wants to bring something that's going to be on that weapon, we have to have those discussions early in the process so there's actually space for the weapons, or there's power for them to consume from an intelligent rail, for example. So it's we take it very seriously from a soldier standpoint. They're the reasons that we do what we do, because in the end, you know, a lot of times those dismounted guys they're the disadvantaged users. A lot of times people forget, you know, at that sort of lower tactical level. The good thing is a lot of folks are realizing that if things are working down there, then they're likely working, you know, above that from a networking standpoint. So that's a good news story. But in the end, you know, the better we can do at understanding this, the better that we can do getting the feedback from soldiers early and often, the more that we can iterate, the more that we can keep industry informed, the more that we can keep all of our counterparts, you know, other various stakeholders like the S&T community, the test community, all those folks informed, the better off we're going to be. And in the end, that's what helps us get back to the main theme, which is, you know, getting that gear in the soldiers' hands, and not only get it into their hands, but have a high level of soldier acceptance. So that's the goal, is just making sure we're doing the right thing by, you know, the sons and daughters of our nation. So, and that's all I have, and I'll open it up for some questions. And of course, be up here for everybody who wants to talk afterwards. So, go ahead.
Thank you for the Soldier Enhancement Program, and we've utilized that, and it was fantastic. So it's really nice to see the ideas that are coming from the force, the soldiers. Are those up on the website? Are those shared by some of the equipment?
I don't think they're actually supposed to. The ones that were accepted they generally are announced back out to and posted so that everybody knows that we're taking a look at that kit. So yeah, so we try to. The good thing is both the requirements community as well as the PM, they're very informed on what's been submitted before and trying to manage that. But it was just fascinating because we actually had to start accounting for the ideas that they had, and not just the kit. Hey, have you ever thought about configuring X with X or linking X to this? And we're like, wow, that actually makes sense. So we had to actually have a little special form just for a great idea. So, but it's a great program. So, any other questions? Alrighty. Well, listen, I thank you for the time. It's always a pleasure to get up and talk about what we're doing at PEO-Soldier and how we're trying to take care of our dismounted soldiers and soldiers in general. So the better we can do at getting them the kit that they need and the right kit, then that's the right thing. So thanks for letting me share all that information with you guys. So.